this course is a mix between, it's mainly me kind of showing you screenshots and talking about it and obviously answering your questions. There will be a bit of a live demo I'm going to do at the end. There won't be any hands-on, obviously just the numbers of people, it doesn't work. I tried it before, it's not workable to do that. But like I said, there will be a live demo, and what I do hope you do at the end of this, and I'll remind you, is to go away and have a play around with the feature, okay, yourself, because I can explain all this, you know, to the nth degree, but until you actually go in and look at it in your own system, that's when these things really start to sink in. It's 1 hour long, and like I say, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat or put your hand up and I'll answer them as I go along. What you'll achieve during this masterclass, basically, I have to read all that. Basically, I'm going to show you everything about the chat, about the Find a Friends feature, the new Find a Friends feature, and then also I'm going to be talking to you briefly near the end about chat rooms. But it's all about, like I say, creating this community kind of feel amongst your volunteers. Some keywords to know there. I think you'd know them all anyway for admins, to be fair. I will be sharing a workbook. I'll email it across to you, hopefully by end of play today, if not tomorrow. So you can take notes if you want, but there will be a workbook which will be emailed out to each of you afterwards. So what is the Find a Friends feature? That's the core thing, the core development we've done in the last update. So it's basically what we found. If I tell you the origins of it, then it hopefully kind of makes more sense. So originally the request came from it's from Royal Parks, I believe, and also some of the theatres, the Lowry Theatre in Manchester, and a couple of others customers required it. And the problem they were finding with the volunteers were certain volunteers, they have friends that they want to volunteer with, and when they're with the Royal Parks scenario, they had a buddying up system. Well, imagine everyone, they walk around this park and they buddy up with a friend, and then they walk around there, answer questions from visitors to the park, and they're doing things together as a pair. And the same with the theatres, they tend to with the theatre shows, they tend to have people who want to volunteer to kind of help out on the doors or help out kind of stewarding for that particular show, but they want to do it with a friend, because when the show's on, they're obviously, you know, they're chatting and stuff, which is perfectly fine, you know. So we needed a way for them to be able to see who else was on those opportunities. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a delicate issue, because you're sharing the volunteers are sharing their own information with other volunteers. There's no way for a volunteer to see which other volunteers are on an opportunity without sharing some of that volunteer's information. Now we've made it very kind of locked it down very much so lots of things, the volunteer has to opt into it being the key thing. It's not something that you just switch on and suddenly the volunteers are going to be phoning you up saying, how did this happen? They have to physically go in there and kind of opt into this, which I'll come on to this shortly. So don't worry about the kind of security side of it, because I'm going to cover that. But that's the origins of it. The origins is how to create this way that a volunteer can see which other volunteers are on certain opportunities or certain sessions. Now, why would you do it, I suppose, is the next question. Well, I'll kind of explain roughly why you do it. I think on top of the obvious things, the buddying up, and it does, I mean, we all know this ourselves, you know, if you've got another volunteer who's turning up for an opportunity, it's like turning up to play paddle, isn't it? The amount of times I wouldn't turn up to play paddle with my friends just because my friends are kind of saying, are you coming? Are you coming? I'm like, yeah, okay. And I always feel better afterwards. But it's creating that community, kind of, it's an extra kind of driving force to get the volunteers, make sure that they turn up and they fully engage with the volunteer program. Okay, so why should you use it? Well, it encourages group volunteering and fosters great sense of community amongst volunteers. I kind of mentioned that before. It doesn't have to be buddying in regards to just two. It could be 3 or 4 people who like volunteering together. So it doesn't have to be 2 people. But again, it's creating that cohesion. Many people need to volunteer and want to volunteer alongside their friends to begin with. Self-explanatory. Enables them to find out which sessions their friends are on to book onto the same sessions, as I've just explained. And alternatively, a volunteer can make friends while volunteering for you and want to stay connected with those friends. So they might buddy up with somebody that they've never met before, and then they say, you know, I really got on with that person. Okay, what other sessions or opportunities are they on? Okay, common use cases. So we have the buddying system, like where there's 2 volunteers working together, the one I just explained. You've got opportunities where volunteers want to share their experience with their volunteer friends, example theatre shows, as I mentioned before. Or you've got the third one where you've got, a small group. It might not be 2 people, it might be 5 or 6 people who say, oh, actually we've got a lot of things in common, let's do our opportunities together. And it allows them to see what opportunities their group is actually on. So they're the main use cases, but I'm sure there's lots of other ones out there. I mean, it's not limited to that. That just tends to be what we see so far in the short time it's been running. That tends to be the main use cases of the function. Okay. So what is the volunteer's experience using Find a Friend? So once you switch it on, which I'll come on to shortly, how you do that. Basically, the volunteer, firstly, they go to the opportunity. And when they go to the opportunity, if you've got the feature switched on, okay, and also against the opportunity, so you can specify on an opportunity by opportunity basis whether it's enabled, then it will allow that Find a Friends feature. So you don't have to have it for all your opportunities. You may only have certain opportunities where you say, it'd be useful in this buddying up opportunity, but not on the other ones. It's fine, switch it on for that one opportunity. But fundamentally, from the volunteer's experience, everything is the same to the point where they join the opportunity. So you imagine the screenshot down below. This is taken from the just from the search pages, the see an opportunity. Once they click into the opportunity, it depends whether it's the opportunity is session-based or flexible opportunity. It will appear slightly different, pretty similar in all honesty, but there will be some slight differences. But essentially, the one you're looking at here is a session-based opportunity. So once they click into it, you can see on the right-hand side where they would normally click the join button. This volunteer's already joined the top one. That's why it says leave. But they can see what other volunteers are on that particular session. Okay. So they can click between the sessions and see what other volunteers are on that session. Now you can see from this particular example here, it's showing there'd be the volunteer's photo. If there's a photo on there, it's just showing a profile image there, but there'd be a photo on there. You can also see the volunteer's phone number, and they can also click on the volunteer's name. Now, if they click on the volunteer's name, it will open up a message box that you see on the right-hand side where they can send a direct message. So it's to the volunteer. Okay, so there's kind of 3 bits of information there. You've got the photograph, useful, obviously. Me, I'm rubbish with names. I'm good with faces, rubbish with names. You've got the phone number, and you've got the ability to send them a message. Now, you don't have to have, you can specify which bits of that are actually visible, which I'll come on to a bit within the super admin settings. So you can say, oh, don't share the phone number, but allow them to message each other via the system, but don't share the phone number if that was what you wanted. Okay. So that's on a session-based opportunity. So you see we have 1 session on the Saturday, 1 session on the Tuesday. For flexible opportunities, it's exactly the same. But as you know, for those of you, all of you should know, when you go to a flexible opportunity, there's just a single join button. And again, so rather than seeing 2 sessions down here, you'd have a single join button, and next to it, it would still show in the same way that same information about the other volunteers on that particular opportunity. Any questions so far? I'm hearing pings. I don't know whether that's might be people asking questions.
Yeah, Joanna's got a hand up.
I'm a little bit like you might be getting up to all of this, so I don't want to jump the gun on things there. But okay. Is it only within the same opportunity? And I'll give you an example. Or can it be across opportunities? So we have volunteers who are doing the same type of opportunity at different locations. We have volunteer musicians who are at different locations, and they've suggested to us that they would like a way to communicate between the different volunteer musicians around the organization. So is there a way for volunteers to use a Find a Friend function to communicate with other volunteers doing the same type of opportunity in different locations, or is it only linked to the opportunity itself?
That's a good question. Good question. I'm just thinking it through now. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I can't see any issues in doing that, because essentially a volunteer logs into the system and then they can search any opportunity on there. And if that opportunity has been marked for sharing information, sharing the volunteer information, and that volunteer has opted into it, then they would be able to see the volunteer's which volunteers are on that particular opportunity. So if you've got a volunteer on a musical opportunity A, and then they want to see if their friend is on musical opportunity B, then they could just go to it via the search page and they'll be able to see which volunteers are on there, as long as that other volunteers opted to share in their information and that the other opportunity has sharing volunteer information switched on, which you do when you create the opportunity. Then volunteer A could say, oh, right, I'm doing this musical opportunity. I might do opportunity B over there where I'm playing guitar doing something else. And then they could go over there, so they could go to that opportunity in the search page and they'll be able to see which of the volunteers are on that opportunity. The point, they don't have to join it to see it, because obviously the whole point of them deciding to join it may well be based on whether their buddy, their friend, or the musician is on that other opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so they'd still be able to communicate, though. They'd still be able to bring up the message box and still chat to each other.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
there's an option, Joanna, in the settings to dictate whether volunteers have to be on the opportunity first or not.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have that selected as they don't have to be on the opportunity, then yeah, they can look at who's on all the opportunities that are valid. They don't need to be on the opportunity to find out who else is on the opportunity.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rolf. Okay. So how can you control what volunteers can share? Well, right at the top, you've got a system level option. Okay, a bit of IT jargon. It sounds very IT jargony, doesn't it? System level option. But fundamentally, you say, well, there's a master switch. If that's switched off, then no volunteer, no matter what happens, is going to be able to share any information with another volunteer. Okay. So you can switch that on or off. But in order for it to happen, then obviously it needs to be switched on. Then you've got, okay, what about switching it on per opportunity? When you're creating the opportunity, so you're putting in the title, the description, and the location. I'm sure you've done this hundreds of times yourselves. I certainly have. You're going to get to a slide on there, which allows you, which says turn on, I forget what the actual option is. I think it's screenshotting here in a second. Basically, it says share volunteer information on or off. Okay, so as long as it's switched on at the system level and you've created an opportunity and you've switched it on, then it says, okay, well, people on this opportunity could potentially be sharing their volunteer information. Then the final thing is, well, what else has to happen then? Well, the volunteers need to opt into it. So you'll see shortly, another slide, the volunteers have to go into their notifications, so log into the system, click on notifications and turn it on. It's only 2 clicks for them, but they need to turn it on. So it's not something that you're going to be able to force them to do. It's something that you can give them, you can switch it on at the system level, you can create opportunities where it's switched on. So all the ability to do it is there and up and running, but then the volunteer still needs to opt into it in order for them to share their information. Okay. Any questions over that? That's quite a key thing, which I'm sure is on people's minds. Must have explained it very well then. Okay, so we go. System level options. Pardon me. So what we have down here, I can barely see it, right at the bottom, you have the ability to, if you go to your super admin menu and you go down to options, you see it highlighted here in orange, and then you've got right at the bottom of that page, you've got the ability to switch the options on or off. Okay, you'll see the options in kind of zoomed in here, but these are the options that I just showed you. Super admin menu, options. Okay, so then we've got the master switch. So allow opportunities to share volunteer information. If that's set to no, none of it will work. So that has to be set to yes. Now beneath that, if that is set to yes, then we have the ability, if the opportunity volunteer information is on, then enable messaging. Okay, so that's the first one. So that's the messaging. That's the one where if they click on the volunteer's name, it comes up the message box and they can send them a message. The next option is if opportunity volunteer information is on, obviously the master switch, and then show the volunteer mobile contact information, the phone number. Then we got if opportunity volunteer information is on, allow logged in volunteers to see shared information before joining. Okay, so that's them having to be logged in before, and they can actually see the information. Okay, So that's the system level options we just went through. Yeah. Next, we've got the opportunity level options. So as long as it's switched on at the system level and you've decided what you want to share, then the next thing is you need to choose which opportunities actually are sharing the volunteer information. Okay. And on the right hand side there, the top right hand corner of that little screenshot, it says allow volunteer information sharing. That's the key option you need to set to yes if you want that opportunity, volunteers and that opportunity to be sharing their information. Okay, and it's another promoting and sharing slide, which I'm sure you've all seen many times. So whether it's on at all or showing the volunteer photo and name, so you can decide then basically whether it's on at all, as I said before, sharing the volunteer photo and name, whether to enable messaging between volunteers, whether to share volunteers' mobile numbers, or when volunteers can see this information. Once the overall setting has been turned on, the usage is decided on an opportunity by opportunity basis, which is what we're looking at here. Okay, you might have it switched on at a system level, but if none of your opportunities, if they're all switched off, if it all say no, as in the screenshot on the right hand side, for every opportunity, then no one's going to be able to do it. So you need to switch it on as well for those specific opportunities. Okay, the volunteer opts to share the information. This is the final part. So it's switched on at system level. You've got some opportunities that you've switched it on for. Next thing is the volunteers have to opt to share their details. Now, by default, they'll always be opted out, as you'd hope and expect. So there's no kind of accidental things where they're going to say, oh, I didn't agree to this. They have to change the option themselves. So volunteers, when they log into the system, on that left-hand side panel that they always see, where they have profile and all the rest of it, there's one that says notifications and permissions. Okay. When they click on that, they get different options, as you can see on the right-hand side. And the option on the far right-hand side is share details with other volunteers. So that needs to be set to yes. If that's set to no, none of their information will ever be shared. Okay. So all those three things need to be set to yes. System level, an opportunity, and then the volunteer on that opportunity has to have it switched to yes, as per the screenshot. Any questions at this stage?
Just to let people know as well, if volunteers join an opportunity which is marked for valid for this feature, then the first time they join, if they don't have the permission switched on, they'll get an email asking them if they want to opt in.
Thank you, Rolf. That's a good point. Any other questions?
Steve, it's Brian from Community Action Network.
Hi, Brian.
Hiya. Yeah, just a question around sort of safeguarding. I've put it in the chat, but it's safeguarding young volunteers or vulnerable volunteers. Is there anything in the system that would disable this function? Because particularly young volunteers and volunteers under the age of 16 or 18 probably would feel a bit nervous about sharing personal details, or even just giving them the opportunity to use this function with other volunteers.
It's a very good question. I mean, the first thing, is there a way of switching it off? Absolutely, that's the system level option as I showed you before. So if you go into the super admin settings options and then you switch it off, then no one can use it. So absolutely, and that's by default the case. So absolutely, you can switch that off. It's interesting you've said that, and it's made me start thinking maybe there's an argument to have some kind of minimum age, or some kind of, anyone under a certain age cannot use that feature. Maybe that's something I'll have a chat with the development team about.
Yeah, we don't have anything for that yet, Brian. If they agree to share, then it's switched on regardless of how old they are. But it's a great point.
Yeah, it's a very valid point. Yeah, you make a note of that, Rolf, if you can. Any other questions? Nope.
I've got one. Yeah. Sorry, if I could follow on from Brian's question, and thank you, Brian, for asking that, because I was wondering it too. Sorry if you're going to get to this. What does it like? Where are the messages stored? Like, can the admins view them? I'm just, from a safeguarding perspective, want to make sure that there's like not that it can be viewed to make sure there's no inappropriate communication happening or anything. If a volunteer was to report to me that another volunteer sent them a message that made them feel uncomfortable, I need to be able to see that potentially myself, or to manage, make sure there's not a conversation going back and forth that might involve racism or misogyny or anything like that, which would breach our organization's policies. So is it the messages, are they only viewable to the volunteers, or is there a way for admins to be viewing it in order to manage the relationship as well? And I think especially of vulnerable individuals, hopefully we will have checked our volunteers in some way, shape, or form, but to ensure that someone who's maybe more vulnerable, who might not be able to recognize a conversation maybe heading in a problematic direction, or using language that they don't feel comfortable with, if they might not feel able to challenge that, I want to make sure I'm protecting my volunteers as well, and I'm not just kind of leaving them open to any communications.
Absolutely. Rolf, can you cover
Yeah,
that?
there isn't anywhere currently that admins can see the messages, but there's no functional reason why you can't. So I've made a note of that to get that sorted out.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It's a very good point you just made there. It makes sense because we do it. You'll see we come on to shortly the chat rooms. We do it with the chat rooms for that same reason. I think it's a brand new feature, but it makes complete sense to do that. Yeah, but I'll come on to it. I'll come on to it shortly. What we do with the chat rooms, and it'll probably end up being very similar to how we deal with the chat, how we let you kind of analyze and oversee the chat rooms. But yeah, very good point. Thank you. Any other questions? No, good. So the live demo. Here we go, Blue Peter style now. Let's go into a live demo. Right, so the first thing is you need to make sure that it's switched on at the system level. So super admin menu, options, opportunities, and down the bottom here, we've got allow volunteer. That's the options you just saw in the screenshots. Allow volunteers to share information. Then we've got the sub options below there. What information is shared? Okay, so that's where the option is. That needs to be switched on. Next is you're going to create an opportunity. To create the opportunity, let's say it's park warden. Okay, I won't bother putting obviously a description. Park warden description there. Choose that image there. Pick a location. Just quickly skip over this stuff for you. Poorly managed opportunity. Till we get to promotions, promoting and sharing. Allow find a friend feature. So this is where we turn it on at the system level. This is the next thing. We're turning it on for a specific opportunity. Okay. And I'm going to create it for specific sessions, for example. So it could be flexible opportunity, it could be session. It works in the same way for both, in all honesty. Just add it then, for 12 months, great opportunity. So now we've created an opportunity where we have the option switched on. Okay. Then we have a volunteer. Here's my volunteer. Make sure it hasn't logged me out. No, it hasn't. We have a volunteer who's logged to the system. This is the first page they see. When they go down to notifications and permissions, they need that option set to yes, as I showed you before in the screenshots, which is saying that they're happy to share their information. Okay. And the final thing is they need to join an opportunity. Let me see which volunteer this is. Kathleen, this is. Okay. So let's go and join that opportunity. Park warden. So at first, this volunteer is joining some sessions. Okay. Now, no other volunteers on this opportunity yet. So obviously, they're not going to be able to see any other information about other volunteers or communicate with them, I should say, because they're the first person to join it. Okay. So Kathleen has joined some sessions. Now, Steve, the volunteer called Steve, is good friends with Kathleen and been volunteering with them before. and he wants to see what sessions, what part water sessions Kathleen has been on. So if I log out of here, and I'm going to impersonate Steve. So basically it's logging me in as Steve the volunteer. I'm sure you'll know what the impersonate button does now. Okay, so I'm logged in as Steve. Now, Steve searching for opportunities. He sees the park warden. Tongue twister. Okay, and when he goes down to the sessions, he can see Kathleen's phone number. He'll be able to see her photo if she'd uploaded a photo. And if he clicks on her name, he can send her a message. And it's as simple as that. Okay. Anyone got any questions over that demo? Want me to demo something slightly different of it? No? Good, good, good. Yes, maybe? There's a ping there.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to know how they're notified about the messages. Do they get an email to say so-and-so in this opportunity has sent you a chat?
Yeah, they get an email with the message in the email and also a link to reply to that message if they want to reply.
Thanks, Rolf. Okay, so that's it. And if I do with a flexible opportunity, obviously there's a single join button here, but it'd work exactly the same way. Now, if Kathleen hadn't decided to share her information, then obviously it wouldn't show. She wouldn't appear in this list here. So they have to decide to share the information before they can actually become visible to another volunteer. Okay. Yep, another question?
Yeah,
Hi, Steve. You know, when volunteers opt in for this option, does it opt in for any and all opportunities that they join?
For all opportunities that they join, where the opportunity has been marked as, oh, you can share volunteer information on this opportunity. So remember that no information can be shared between volunteers unless on an opportunity, unless it's switched on at an opportunity level. And then the volunteers' information still wouldn't be shared unless the volunteers have opted in to sharing their information.
Right. Okay. And just to follow up on that, in terms of the minimum level of information that is shared, we can set that to just their name, right? Because obviously there's some concerns and some questions raised about sharing phone numbers and messages and things like that.
Yeah, so if we go down to here, so opportunities. So we got, is it the master switch? Has to be set to yes for anything to work at all. If the opportunity follow information, so enable messaging, so you can decide whether the messaging is allowed, because you might say, oh, the messaging is not allowed. It's just the make the photo and the photo and the phone number visible. Then you've got if it's on show the volunteer's mobile contact number. So yes, you can use these options here. You can specify exactly what is being shared. Okay, and this will override anything that the volunteer or the opportunity creator does, the provider does. It doesn't make a difference. This overrides everything.
Right.
Okay. So yep, you can do that.
Thanks.
And no problem at all. Any other questions? Yep. Good. Right. I'm going to switch back to the presentation then.
Joanna was just asking about flexible op. It's the same. It's just not split into sessions. So you get the same sort of display.
I'll quickly show you. FlexiOp. Hopefully there's not another opportunity on here called FlexiOp. It's a common name that I use. So options there again in the same place under promoting and sharing when you're creating the opportunity. And this time I'm going to create a flexible opportunity. Now volunteer A, in this case Steve, it's going to be. Steve goes and joins that opportunity. Fine. Can't see any of the information because there's no one else on that opportunity yet. Okay. And then Kathleen, I think it was, wasn't it? Kathleen. So if I log out here, log in as Kathleen, is going to have a look at that opportunity, flexible one, and you'll see what Kathleen can see in regard to Steve's information. So if I go to search, I should use up here, shouldn't I? Kathleen Star, there we go. Okay, so I'm now logged in as Kathleen. Steve's hat's gone. Kathleen's hat's on. And Kathleen wants to volunteer with Steve. And says, well, he did mention this opportunity to me when we were chatting last week. And it was called FlexiOp. I'll see if he's on it. If he is, I might join it. There it is. And there we are there. So there's the single join button, and there's Steve's information. Works in exactly the same way. Okay. Phone number. Da, 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 da. Right. So back to the presentation. So the final bit we're going to cover, because we are talking about not just that feature, although it is that feature in the main, is chat rooms. I don't know how many of you use chat rooms. Can you put your hands up if you've used chat rooms before? A quick look at. Yep, Andrea has. Put your thumbs up. Okay, there's not many of you. Oh, somebody else as well. Okay, so sorry. So with chat rooms, let's get it on here again. So with chat rooms, they're basically it's the ability to have a little, what do you call it? A little forum. A little forum's probably not the right word. I'll use chat room. So every opportunity, if it's switched on, can have its own mini chat room. And it's like it allows volunteers on that opportunity to communicate with other volunteers on that opportunity. But rather than like a one-to-one basis, like we just shown you before, where they can message them, this is just an open chat. Okay, so everyone can see everyone's conversation. Okay, and it's usually things like anyone taking waterproof clothing tomorrow. It's things like that you tend to see on there. Then another volunteer will jump in there and say, yes, I didn't, and I got caught out last week, and blah 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 blah. Okay, now, why would you use it? Well, firstly, it takes a bit of pressure off the person running the opportunity, because you've got other volunteers who are answering the questions on your behalf. So those volunteers, maybe they've done it for 6 months. They know exactly all the ins and outs of what the opportunity is, what the car parking's like, what things to take in terms of clothing, in case the conditions aren't good. They know all that stuff. So rather than the volunteer asking a question of the provider who's running the opportunity, who may be very busy, might take them a few days to get back to them, another volunteer can jump in there and answer that question on behalf of them. Okay, now, who can be part of that conversation? Well, the people who can be part of that conversation are, the only people who can see it are people on that opportunity. It's not like, the public can see this conversation. Only people on that opportunity can be part of that conversation. So only volunteers on the opportunity can ask and reply to questions. And that includes the provider of the opportunity as well. Okay. And automatically, like everything, it always includes the admins. As an admin, you can see and do everything on the system. So yes, you can be part of that conversation as well if you think there's a need for that. Okay. And the way it appears is when the volunteers join an opportunity. So this one on the screenshot on the right-hand side is Steward for a theatre show. They click on chat room on the left-hand side, and then they type in a message. That will share the message with everybody else on that opportunity, including the provider. And it'll email them as well, by the way, telling them a new chat message has been added. So they do get a prompt. They don't have to kind of stumble across it. They get prompted that a chat message has been added. And then obviously either the volunteers or the provider of that opportunity can reply to that message, and everyone can see the answers. Okay. Sometimes people worry about this like safeguarding this and the other. This is certainly a lot less of an issue, because it's an open forum which everybody's aware of what everyone's saying. It's not Twitter. It's not like they're going to see them the next day on the opportunity. So it's not, it's not like I don't know, touch wood, we've never seen any kind of misuse of the chat feature thus far, or bad language or anything like that. Okay. And that's it. There's not a lot to really go through this. I could give you a demo if you really wanted me to, but as long as the main thing is, as long as it's switched on for the super admin settings, then that's it. it'll always be available on every opportunity. You can't switch it on and off per opportunity. It's once it's on, then it's on for all opportunities. Now, they might not use it. Volunteers might not see a reason to actually leave a chat message. That's fine. But if they want to, it's there for them to use. Okay. Is there any questions? I think I've just seen a question pop up.
Steve, could you show us why the super admins control this chat? Is it different to the other ones? Is it different to the other ones in terms of how you control these chat rooms on and off?
It's different to the other one, I suppose, in regards to with the find a friend function that we just went through before. You can switch that on and off on an opportunity basis. With the chat rooms, it's switched on at the system level. So there is no, once it's on, like I say, it's available for any opportunity.
We do have an enhancement request in for the next version, hopefully, which will allow you to set it on and off per opportunity.
Yeah, it makes sense to be able to do that if we can do it with the find a friend feature. But at the moment, it's just a master switch that you switch on or off. And if it's on, then it's on for every opportunity you create. Like I said, it doesn't mean that people are going to be having long conversations in every opportunity, but it's available for the ones. You tend to find what I see. I tend to find there's certain opportunities which are really busy and you have lots of conversations, and then there's other ones which it's just not relevant for that particular type of opportunity. Is what I tend to see.
I just wanted to add as well, there is it's actually called Potty Mouth, the filter, which takes away swear words, but it is based on a blacklist. So it's only words or combinations of words that I've added. So if you do find any words in a chat that you don't want to be in the chat, let me know and I can potentially add them to the filter.
And in terms of monitoring these things as well as an admin, you mentioned before, this is why we're saying actually it makes sense to do it for the Find a Friends feature the same way we do it for this chat rooms feature. If I quickly jump out of here, I'll show you. When you log in as admin, I mean, you could always go to the opportunity and see the full conversation. But when you log in as admin, on the first page that you see, it actually brings up chat messages since you last logged on. So you can automatically see as an admin what conversations are happening across all of your opportunities. And you can decide to view that whole conversation if you want to. And we'll probably end up doing a similar thing for the Find a Friend, the same kind of way.
Steve, where do you turn on this chat function? Can you show us, please?
Yep, it's super admin settings, and then it's, oh no, you're asking me now, it's options, and then it'll be opportunities or volunteers, I reckon. I think it's opportunities. Yeah, there it is, chat rooms, enable opportunity chat room. So super admin menu, options, opportunities, and then chat rooms. And that needs to be switched to yes. Once it's yes, then every opportunity has the ability, has a chat room available to it. Okay, any other questions? No. Good. Let's go on to here. Okay. How do I turn on chat rooms? There you go. I thought I had a slide in there. I was thinking, have I missed that? Super admin options, opportunities, and you can see it down the bottom there. So that's it basically. If you need to find any help about this, like I say, I'm going to be emailing you across the workbook supporting this particular masterclass. And also, I was going to show you actually on the system, because I could show you with screenshots, but all of these masterclasses are always available. If you go to help and support, down to tutorial videos, okay, we have masterclasses on the left-hand side here. So it's help and support, tutorial videos, masterclasses, and then you're going to have all the different masterclasses. I mean, it's listening to my slightly brummy undertones. You might space them out over a few days, but this is when we go into features like this in a lot of detail, and we kind of answer your questions. So it's and this masterclass will appear on here in probably the next few days. Okay, so definitely take a look at these masterclasses. And that's it. It's our contact information. So any final questions before we wrap things up? Okay. So what I'm going to do is just stop sharing there. So hopefully you go away and have a play around with this. No point listening to me talking for 45 minutes and then not getting involved or trying it out at least. So feel free to have a play around with it. Like I say, with the Find a Friends feature, you can switch it on. That won't do anything because the volunteers have to opt in to be able to share any information anyway. So feel free to switch it on, and you might want to create an opportunity, maybe make it a secret opportunity, and then you can do that in terms of test out between you and a colleague and see how it works and see if you're happy with how it works. If you do have any feedback, then raise it via support ticket. We've made a note of 2 or 3 things there, which are very useful. I appreciate that. But anything else that springs to mind, just raise it via support ticket, and we'll certainly take it into consideration. Yeah, and that's it. I don't think there's anything else. If you do have any burning questions and you feel like you want to hold on at the end, that's perfectly fine. Just stay around to the end and I'll answer those questions for you now. But for everybody else, thank you for your time. I'm going to stop recording now. And yeah, thank you for your time. And hopefully, get involved with it and start using the function right after this session if you can.